What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Too Pop to Handle. I'm your host, Andrew Nucatola, your pop culture best friend. And as always, I hope you guys are having a fabulous week. And assuming everybody listening is not that couple who got caught cheating at the Coldplay show, I'm going to assume we're all having a much more fabulous week than they are having. I can't get over it. We're not going to talk about it much because it's kind of old news at this point, but why? In what world do you think Coldplay is the concert to cheat at? You know what I'm saying? In what world do you find Coldplay is the most, I would say, evergreen band out there. They fall into that genre of mom pop, where it's Maroon 5, The Fray, that genre of artist. In what world do you think bringing your co-worker affair to a Coldplay show isn't going to result in a disaster? You know what I mean? That being said, I hope the two of them are, happily ever after, and maybe this is the start of a new relationship for the two of them. But I also hope that wife of the CEO sues him for everything he is worth, because he is worth a lot. That being said, hello. Very exciting night in the Too Pop to Handle world. As I'm recording this, actually, I don't know if it started yet, but it should be starting soon. It is officially time for the world premiere of Freakier Friday. Clearly, I am at home filming this podcast, so I am not at the premiere, which I know a lot of people were campaigning online to get me to the premiere, which is so nice. Every time I would post a video, even mentioning Freakier Friday, at least 2 to 3 comments in the section would be get him to the premiere, get him to the premiere, get him to the premiere, which means the world to me, and I appreciate it so much. However, what I am going to say is I would go follow me on social media now for the next few days, because we have some very exciting Freakier Friday content coming up. I can't say what, and I guess I can say when. By the next episode next week, if this is any indication, if you know my schedule, by next week's episode, I will have some very exciting updates about Freakier Friday. But if you don't want to wait until Wednesday, go follow me on my socials, because I will be live updating. But I might not be at the premiere, but I'm cooking up something, Freakier Friday related here in New York City for next week. And I am so excited and cannot wait to talk about it with you guys next week. And that's all I'm going to say. I feel like I'm doing that annoying influencer thing, where they're I'm working on a really cool project and I can't say it. And I always hated when my favorite YouTubers or content creators would have that kind of conversation like that. And now, unfortunately, being in that position of almost an influencer / content creator / podcast host / annoying person on the internet, I now am getting opportunities where I'm I actually can't say anything about this that isn't incredibly vague, So I understand their pain now, but very exciting things coming in the next week at Too Pop to Handle headquarters, and I cannot wait to bring you guys along and to tell you guys all about it. But that is all I can say for now. And with all of that being said, let's get into the show and kick things off, as we always do, with our Drew releases, our new music releases from last week, and our new music releases coming up this week. There's only one release on my radar for last week, and that was Renee Rapp's new single, Why Is She Still Here? It is the third single from her upcoming album, Bite Me, that comes out not this Friday, but next Friday, August 1st, which I am so excited about. And this single just solidified exactly what I needed from this album. The first 2 singles I loved, and I think they are really a great showcase of Renee's mindset and kind of where she's at personally. She really wanted people to know, I have really found myself, and you thought that I was, had this attitude and, this non-media trained personality before. Buckle up, get ready for it now. I mean, her lead single was literally called Leave Me Alone, and the album is called Bite Me. And when you look at the 2 albums that she's put out, the first one, I mean, even the EP, if you want to go as far as that, the EP being called I Can't Be Everything to Everyone, the album being called Snow Angel, and now this new one being called Bite Me. Bite Me is a very jarring title in comparison to the other 2 projects that we have gotten from Renee. So we already know that we're really going to get kind of this bite back, punchy attitude from her, which I'm so excited about. But this single, Why Is She Still Here, is the absolute best display of Renee's vocals we have gotten on this album thus far. And I mean, Renee Rapp is a vocalist before anything, really. I mean, the girl can sing like no other. And this song just completely embodies everything I love about Renee's voice. And I think she really does an excellent job at knowing when to give us all of her vocals and knowing when to kind of play around with her lower register and knowing when to, kind of turn it on, turn it off. And I mean, she's a Broadway star before anything. Like, she literally started her career on a Broadway stage. So it's really just goes to show like the techniques and abilities that she's kind of carried from her Broadway career into her pop star career. But this song, my God, it's so sexy. It's so sultry, very Amy Winehouse, Love Is a Losing Game. As soon as I put it on and I heard that backtrack, I was like, I've heard this before and I love this. I think it's great. I think this is the perfect kind of track for Renee to leave us with before we get the full album, because we've really gotten a few different sounds from her for the album so far, and I'm really excited to see where she goes with the rest of the album. I am so excited for this album. I am absolutely loving this single, and I just can't wait to see what Renee Rapp has in store for us. Like I said, that comes out not this week, but next week. And on the topic of this week, there are no releases on my radar this week, actually. I have nothing this week coming out that I can think of, and if something gets announced, as I always say, artists love to do a last-minute announcement, but I was doing all my research, really looking up and down through the interwebs, trying to see if there was any music coming out this Friday, and there was nothing on my docket. So I get a week off this week, which is very exciting. I have a very, very busy week this week and next week. So I'm like, all right, cool. I can take a beat from the music and then, focus on the other chaos going on outside of the music world. But yes, that is our Drew releases. And before we get into our moments from the week that were just too pop to handle, I just always love to remind you guys that if at any point during this episode you are loving what you were hearing, do not be shy. Go ahead and leave me a 5-star rating. It seriously is the best way to help support the show. Whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, whatever platform I am gracing your headphones, your car speakers, whatever it may be, however you're listening, seriously would mean the world to me if you left a 5-star rating. I hit my download goal, like I was saying. I hit it last week, and that was the number that I was aiming to hit by December. So the fact that I hit it by July is seriously just like mind-blowing to me, and it just means the world to me that people tune in every single week and listen to me yap about the things that I love. So thank you guys seriously so much for that. But do not be shy. Go ahead and show me some love. Give me a 5-star rating. It would seriously mean the world to me. And that being said, let's get on with the show, because I have to give you guys a show to find out whether you love it or not. And this week we're going to do another episode where it's just kind of all pop culture rapid fire, or as I called it, a pop culture Yap-a-Thon. I did this a few weeks ago, and I think it's just a really good option for me to go for. There's not always, especially in the summer, there's not always something for me to really like sink my teeth into and really deep dive like I usually do for the main segment of the show. So I think this is a fun way to kind of have a fallback option and not just kind of, scrape the bottom of the barrel to give you guys a conversation that I'm actually not that interested in, because if I'm not interested in the topic, I know that it comes through on the episode, and nobody wants to listen to somebody talk about something they're not interested in. So with that, we're going to give another pop culture Yap-a-Thon and just do an entire episode of pop culture rapid fire. So let's get into it, and we are kicking it off with some sad news, but I figured let's get the sad news out of the way, and then we'll get into the good stuff in just a few moments. But we had some really sad deaths this week. I mean, death is always sad, no matter who it is. First, on Monday, Malcolm-Jamal Warner died at age 54. He is most notably known as playing the role of Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show. And I know that The Cosby Show kind of has this dark cloud over it just with everything that happened with Bill Cosby over the years. And, it's definitely a weird thing to like look back on and mourn, because it is kind of tainted with what's happened with Bill over the years. However, personally, I grew up watching The Cosby Show. I loved it. It was on in my house all the time. So to see a member of the cast pass away, especially so young, he was 54, it's just so heartbreaking. He was on vacation in Costa Rica with his family, and he had an accidental drowning incident. He was swimming and got caught in a rip current. So he had no like underlying health issues. There was nothing else going on. This was truly a freak accident and just like could happen to anyone. And like I said, death is sad to no matter who it happens to, of course. But just seeing somebody, that was such a staple in so many households, just such a sad story. And I mean, The Cosby Show was such a huge moment for television. The way that it depicted a Black family, and it was kind of erasing these stereotypes that we previously had on television surrounding Black people and Black families. So to see a member of a show that was so monumental for such a large group of people, it's just so heartbreaking. And I mean, it was off air. Like, they were making new episodes by the time that I was born. I believe it ended in like the early 90s, but I feel like the reruns were going all the time through the early 2000s, and I remember watching it all the time. I mean, that's when we met Raven Simone, who went on to be such a huge part of so many of our childhood. So it was such a huge show, despite kind of the dark cloud that hangs over it now with what has transpired. But this is just heartbreaking and such a big pillar in so many people's childhoods, and such a household name for so many people. And on the topic of people that I grew up watching on TV passing away, Ozzy Osbourne passed away today at age 76. And it's crazy because he actually performed a farewell concert like 3 weeks ago. And when artists do like a farewell tour or a farewell concert, whatever it may be, usually, they might be sick or something like that, but usually they just want to slow down and kind of like live the rest of their life out of the spotlight. But for Ozzy, he was sick. He had Parkinson's and had a bunch of surgeries over the years. I did read that he had to like cancel a few tours because he just like wasn't in the right state to perform. But for him to do his farewell show, and like it was marketed as his farewell concert, he performed the entire show sitting in a throne. He like wasn't up performing anything like that. And I mean, Ozzy Osbourne used to perform like crazy. He was like biting off bat heads on stage and shit like that. Like he was very metal. He was, like a pioneer in the metal scene. But for him to have to perform sitting down, it definitely is crazy that just 3 weeks after that, he passed away. I know this might come, not, to a surprise to a lot of you guys, but Black Sabbath isn't my cup of tea. It's not really, what I usually go for. However, I did grow up with my dad being a huge metalhead and loving Kiss, Black Sabbath, Metallica, all of that music. My dad actually had my mom and my dad actually had a very eclectic taste in music growing up. We'd be listening to Missy Elliott, then the Grease soundtrack, then Pink, then Metallica, then techno. Like I grew up in a very a widespread of genres playing in my house, but I turned out fine for the most part. But on the other hand, like I was saying, people that I grew up watching, the Osbournes reality show was a staple in our household growing up. Like we loved Ozzy's reality show because it was Ozzy Osbourne and my dad was such a big fan and my mom was a huge reality TV person. So, it just it was like the best of both worlds. And I mean, they just do not make reality TV like they were doing in the early 2000s. That show, if you haven't watched it, I highly suggest going back and watching it. It was insane. Like it was just it was unbelievable. And I mean, the Osbournes have definitely had their fair share of, controversial things that they've done or said and things like that. I'm not, saying they're the picture perfect people or anything like that. However, they made some entertaining television. And like I said, I grew up watching Ozzy on TV and hearing him in my dad's truck. So just crazy. And I mean, there's no denying that he was such a pioneer for metal and that genre of music. He really was somebody who was always kind of pushing the envelope in that sense. I mean, Black Sabbath is Black Sabbath for a reason. I don't listen to them, I'm not a fan of them, but they're Black Sabbath for a reason. So just sad to see, we're losing people who are such big legends and icons in the music world. That being said, we're going to stop talking about dead people and, turn this around a little bit and talk about some more uplifting things, because that is a very sad way to start the show. And, we don't like to do sad things here at Too Pop to Handle. We like to keep things bubbly and uplifting and, more on the topic of things like Ariana Grande teasing a tour in 2026. I know, it's almost like she listened to my episode last week, because the day that I posted my episode last week where I was talking about like how Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus will probably never tour again, my segue into that was Ariana Grande diving into this like movie thing and being more of an actress. And literally the same day that I posted that episode, she posted a whole thing saying how silly are you guys thinking I would never tour again? That's where my heart is. And I was like, well, shit, she must be a Too Pop to Handle fan, because the fact that I did this the exact same day, the math is mathing. But she posted a video from her Met Gala performance from 2024 when she performed. So she said, it's very silly for all of you to assume that just because I have my hands full with many things that I plan to abandon singing and music, it is and always has been my lifeline. There will need to be room for all of it. It may not look exactly like it did before, but I much prefer how it looks in my head. I'm having fun. I feel grateful, excited, and inspired. I'm finding balance between many projects and endeavors that I love and doing it in my own way. So I'm working on a plan to sing for you all next year, even if it's just for a little I love you, which I did not think Ariana would have any interest in touring anytime soon, honestly. I mean, who am I? Like I was saying last week, she recorded and released Eternal Sunshine without even knowing she was planning to release an album that year. So I feel like Ariana's kind of just always marching to the beat of her own drum and doing whatever feels fit for her. But this is so exciting. I mean, I definitely didn't know when Ariana was going to tour again. And I mean, we've gotten now 2 albums, Positioned and Eternal Sunshine, without a tour. So I kind of was like, all right, maybe she's just gonna kind of figure out how she wants to do it, or maybe she's gonna, do it in in a few years and, maybe do like her version of an Eras tour. Who knows how it works, but it appears that she's trying to do something and get back on stage within the next year or so, which I am so excited about. She's said so many times that she doesn't ever see herself wanting to do like a stadium size show, which she could obviously sell out stadiums without a doubt. Like she would have no problem selling out a stadium 10 nights in a row. Honestly, she just has that demand, and she kind of has that like general public pull kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? But she's always said like she doesn't have any interest in really playing a stadium that size or a venue that size, because she likes the connection that she gets with the fans when she can see them, and she's closer in, and there is such a artist to fan interaction, and it's singing your music on stage and being able to see your fans singing back, even if they are up top. Like in a stadium, they're so much further away. So she's always said that like even in arena, she doesn't love doing arenas because it's so hard to really engage with everybody and make sure everybody is kind of in it, in the show, having a good time and doing their thing. So I don't know what it's going to look like in terms of a tour. I mean, she literally said, I'm working on a plan to sing for you all next year, even if it's just for a little, and I'm doing it my own way. So she's definitely cooking something up. I'm nervous that she's going to try to do like these tiny little venues and, like the sweetener sessions, which I am so, so thankful every day that I splurged and got myself a ticket for that, because it was one of the most insane things I have ever attended in my life. Also, probably the only time I will ever hear Goodnight and Go live. So, and I got to hear Pete Davidson live with Pete Davidson in the room. So like that alone was just like insane and things that I will never hear live again. And it was at Irving Plaza, which was like the tiniest little venue. But I'm very nervous that Ariana thinks that she can still pull these little short, tiny tours and these intimate shows when, even back then it was tough to get a ticket. And now she's like Ariana Grande, who was in Wicked and has this whole new fan base kind of behind her, which didn't even think was possible. But I'm really curious to see like how she rolls this out and like what the vibe is going to be. It seems like going to be something different than she usually does, but I guess time will tell. I could see her doing like a residency situation, kind of like Harry Styles, where he did like 15 shows at one venue and then would go to the next place and do however many shows. I could see her doing something like that. I could see her really just like screwing everybody over and doing small venues and it just being like a bloodbath to get into any of these ticket queues. I could really see her doing whatever. But one thing I know for sure is if you were one of the people calling her a homewrecker a few years ago when everything came out about her and Ethan Slater, I don't want to see you in the Ticketmaster queue. I don't want to see you signing up for pre-sale. I don't want to see you at the show. I don't want to see you thinking about going to this concert because it is not for you. We did not sit through the trenches waiting for new music, waiting for Wicked, supporting her, defending her, proving why she's not a homewrecker, just for you guys to get these tickets and take them away from people who were always on her side. And I hate to, pull out the stand card, but like some of us were at her very first headlining show ever back in 2011, me. So if I don't get a ticket to the show, it's going to be a problem for everybody. I'm just putting it out there now. It'll be a problem for everybody. But that being said, very exciting that Ariana Grande is looking to tour within the next year, and I cannot wait to see what is in store for Miss Ariana Grande in 2026. And moving on to the next moment of the week that we just too pop to handle, sticking on the idea of some concert news, Lady Gaga has officially kicked off the Mayhem Ball in Las Vegas over the weekend, and it is not the same thing as Coachella, and I am so thrilled. Now, before anybody jumps down my throat, yes, it is loosely based on the Coachella set, and there are definitely similarities, but I am so thrilled with the changes that she made and so happy about it. And the biggest thing that I am so happy to report is the fact that she got rid of those fuck-ass skeletons during Zombie Boy. I hated that performance at Coachella so much. And I'm so sorry, Lady Gaga, if this makes it across your desk and you hear this. It's not a you thing, it's just me. Clearly you didn't like them either because you got rid of them. I just did not like the dancing with the skeletons. It was just off to me. And when I see a Lady Gaga show, I expect like clean, crisp, really on it. And the skeletons just weren't doing it. And I am thrilled to get on here and report that the skeletons are no more. She buried them. They are 6 feet under. They're in their graves again. She laid them to rest. And we are no longer dancing with the skeletons. But there are a lot of other similarities and differences within the Mayhem Ball that we're going to get into. The main similarities being the opening scene with the dress and the cage is still a thing. She does change it a little bit, which we'll get into, but she still opens the show, up at the top of the dress with the giant cage and the dancers. I'm not surprised by this because that cage had to cost a lot of money, and like the choreography and making it, and making the stage around it. Like, you can't make something that grand and just use it for like 3 or 4 shows and not use it again when you have a whole tour coming up, especially knowing that Gaga put this tour together very quick and it wasn't even supposed to happen this year. I'm not surprised by it. Also, the acts are mostly all the same. The titles for all the acts that are the same from Coachella are the exact same title. We do have some new ones and some reorganizing and some of the set list changes, but as far as like the actual names of the acts, they do pretty much go in the same order and they are the same names. But again, I'm not that surprised to crank out, 2 fully brand new shows within a few months when you weren't even planning to tour to begin with. I knew it was going to be recycled a little bit, but I am so happy with the changes that she made. So let's get into the differences. So the first change that we see in the show is that she's added Aura to the opening number mashup. Before it was Abracadabra, Judas, and Shiza. Now she has added Aura into that mix. So love that even from the first few minutes of the show, we're getting a change and we're already seeing that we're not going to get, the exact same set. Because I can imagine like sitting in your seat opening night at the show and seeing her come out in the thing and starting with Abracadabra and like doing the typical, the usual thing and being like, okay, cool, we're getting the exact same set. And so many, Gaga has diehard little monsters that went to Coachella, flew to Vegas for opening night. So like, I would be like, oh, cool, we're getting the exact same thing that I saw a few months ago that I sweat in the desert and inhaled all that sand to see. So I'm so happy that within the first few minutes, there was like a signal, like a smoke signal went off. And I was like, hey, you're not getting the same show. It's just similar. It's loosely based on Coachella. Act 3 of the show seemed to be the one that had the most changes. She added Love Drug to the set list. Thank God. I remember after Coachella, I was like, how do you do Mayhem in the desert and not perform Love Drug? So I am so thrilled to see that she has added to the set list. She also added Applause and Just Dance to this set, and it falls where Die With A Smile fell during Coachella, and now she plays Die With A Smile later on in the show, and she plays it with like Vanish Into You, Shallow, more with like the slower ballads kind of vibes, which makes a lot more sense. And when you think of Die With A Smile, it's like the 11 o'clock number on the album. It comes right before the final song, and it's kind of this like slows down kind of moment. So the fact that it was in the middle of the set earlier, it kind of felt like it was like a record scratch, and it was like, wait, we're slowing it down and doing this now. Makes a lot more sense at the end of the show grouped with the other ballads. And I just love that like Love Drug, Applause, Just Dance, like all of these high energy, fun pop songs are kind of all added into this act because it makes a lot more sense. We also have a new act for Act 4. It is now called Every Chessboard Has Two Queens. At Coachella, Act 4 was called To Wake Her Is To Lose Her. And now with Act 4, she added Kill for Love, which is a bonus track. I believe it was either the Target or the one on the vinyl. I forget. It was one of the bonus tracks from the album. So she added Kill for Love. And I think the biggest change and the most exciting thing, because it is the first time she has performed this song since 2007, Summer Boy is on the Mayhem Ball set list. I know. I mean, with the current rise of it on TikTok, it's going so viral. People are rediscovering it and really falling in love with it. I'm not shocked that it's on the set list, but like, I'm shocked that Summer Boy is being performed in the year 2025. I will say it. It is insane. And I remember when I was doing my Mayhem episode, when I dived into the episode and, went track by track, I was saying like, how bad do you want me? And like all of these like synthy kind of pop songs. I was like, this isn't the first time Gaga's doing this. Like, go back and listen to the Fame. And she has so many of these like, not bubblegum pop, but like these like poppy, synthy, just like light, airy pop songs, Summer Boy being one of them. I definitely said I mentioned Summer Boy in that episode. But like, even like if you think like Boys, 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 So Happy I Could Die, like she has all of these like poppy songs on those albums, but the general public isn't always listening to the entire album, so they don't know. They know Bad Romance Gaga, they know Alejandro Gaga, they know the weird, kooky, kind of like cut edge, out of the box Gaga, but she's been doing this like fun pop, airy, whatever music you want to talk about for years. So the fact that she's adding it into the Mayhem set list, I think it just fits so well. And the fact that she's, doing this callback to a song that was on her very first album, it's so full circle and so exciting. And I just love that Summer Boy is having this moment. And this is your reminder, if you have not listened to The Fame by Lady Gaga in the last like 6 months, go pay the album a revisit, go back to her. She is truly incredible. Actually, I hate to even bring these two up in the same conversation because they were getting a lot of comparisons, but I've been going back and listening to a lot of albums that I feel like I haven't listened to in a while. And I listened to Midnights by Taylor Swift the other day in full for the first time, honestly, probably in like a year, maybe 2 years. It's been a long time since I listened to Midnights from front to back. Or when did it even come out 2 years ago? I don't know. It's been a minute since I listened to Midnights from front to back. That album is incredible. And I feel like we get so wrapped up in what's new and, we have to listen to what's new and what's, their latest album or this and that. But like, this is your reminder, go back and revisit old projects that you haven't listened to in a while, because it really just like gives you such an appreciation. Sometimes you need to like, if you love it, let it go, and like it'll come back to you if you need it. You got to do that with music too. You gotta let it go and then come back to it, because you have a whole new appreciation for it. And when I did the Gaga episode back in March or April, March it had to be, I remember I went back and I listened to all of Gaga's albums in order from debut to Mayhem. And I just wanted to really get back into her discography. I've always listened to Gaga. I love her. I've been a fan since the beginning, but you get lost in some of the projects and you get lost in what's new and other things and stuff like that. So just going back and listening to them, it just reminded me of like, there's so many memories that I have tied to those albums, and also just like incredible music that kind of gets swept under the rug. And that's not just with Gaga, with really any artist. So if there's an album that you used to love and you remind yourself that you haven't listened to it in a while, go back and listen to it and thank me later for the reminder, because it really is such a treat to revisit an old friend and just, fall back in love with music that you might have loved 10, 5, however many years ago. It is such a treat. And then finally, something really exciting happening at the Mayhem Ball. She ends the show with How Bad Do You Want Me? And she comes out like stripped back, no makeup on. The first night she had a beanie on and a big t-shirt. So she really like takes off the whole Gaga persona and just comes out as herself. And I mean, when you listen to the lyrics of How Bad Do You Want Me, it's like the girl in your head isn't real. How bad do you want me for real? It's all about really stripping down and being like, do you want me or do you want the persona of how you perceive me? So there's such a huge message in her coming out with no costumes, barely any makeup, and really just performing the song raw as Stephanie, really, and not Lady Gaga. So she performs How Bad Do You Want Me, which is like killer song to play as the encore. And then immediately after that, she's been playing a song to leave the stage from. And she kind of just like dances her way off the stage very casually with her dancers. And she's been doing some really, really fun deep cuts. So she played Sex Dreams, she did Guy, and she's really just been diving into like songs that you didn't think you would hear Gaga playing again in the year 2025. Very art pop heavy so far. So it seems to be becoming like, what song am I going to get at the end of the show? And everyone does secret songs now. It's like the new thing is kind of everybody does surprise songs at their shows. But I think this is a really fun way to do it, because Gaga's not performing these songs. She's just playing them as she exits the stage. And like, it's just such a fun way to like dance and celebrate older songs with the fans that like maybe she doesn't want to perform anymore, but she still wants to remind you guys like, hey, we're still here. Like, these songs still exist. And these are songs that like the real fans love and know. And like the screams on the videos that I've heard of like hearing what song is going to be playing has been so funny. And I'm just loving that like this is the way that she's ending the show. It really is. This seems like a celebratory show for Gaga to be doing. And the fact that, she had to cancel some shows in the past because of her hip injuries and things like that. And she didn't know if she would ever tour again. So just to see her back on stage and doing what she loves and just celebrating her legacy and career in the way that she's doing, it's so exciting. And before we move on to the next moment, this is just a reminder that if this happens to make it across, StubHub, Ticketmaster, SeatGeek, whoever's desk, I do not have tickets to the Mayhem Ball. So if anybody wants to help me out and get me to the Mayhem Ball in New York City to one of the 6 shows I believe she's doing, hit my line, because I definitely need to be there, but those resale prices are not looking cute. So have your people call my people and we'll figure it out. Moving on to the next moment of the week, there were just 2 pop to handle. Charli XCX is officially Mrs. XCX. Her and George Daniel from the 1975 tied the knot over the weekend in London. So fun, so exciting. I love this couple. I think they are just such a perfectly matched pair. They just seem to... They get each other's humor. They like, George is so funny with like not wanting to do the TikToks or the Apple dance, and then Charli makes him do them. And like, they just have this really, it seems like they have a really good back and forth of like what he doesn't bring, she brings, and what she doesn't bring, he brings kind of thing. And they just seemed like they really just kind of complete each other, as cheesy and parasocial as they said. So thrilled to see the two of them tied the knot. Charli looked so Charli XCX coded. Like, she literally was wearing a Vivienne Westwood dress with sunglasses as she walked out of the wedding venue, like out of the chapel. Like, it was seriously the most Charli XCX way to get married. What wasn't very Charli XCX is that a lot of the people that you would think would be there weren't in attendance. So Troye Sivan, Maddie Healy, Addison Rae, like all of these big people who seemed to be major people in Charli and George's lives weren't there. It was really just like family and like the close friends. So that kind of leads me to think that this was just like the actual ceremony, and then they're probably going to do like a big banger party. I mean, it's Charli XCX. There's no way she's not throwing a party for her wedding. You know what I mean? They did some like DJ set, I believe, over the weekend. Like George was DJing and Charli came out and they were like dancing and celebrating together. But I think there's going to be like a big party at some point during the summer where everybody gets together. And I mean, that guest list is crazy. You know, think about all the people that will be invited to that wedding. There's gonna, between Charli and George, like their connections, their friends, their people, the music industry, like there's so much going on that like I feel like they just want to like tie the knot, get it done. Charli's on break from tour for a little bit. I don't think the 1975 is doing anything right now. They just did Glastonbury, but I don't think they're touring. And as far as I know, there's no album coming out anytime soon. So definitely just seemed like the good time to kind of like really let the two of them have their moment, do their thing with their family. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see like a crazy Charli XCX George Daniel wedding, like banger party in the next few weeks or months, whenever it may be, because I feel like, I mean, 365 party girl, she's got to have a party for her wedding, right? Like, come on. But just so cute to see them. They also were like out walking around after, just like in the streets of London. And they have this one photo of them. They're like sitting at a cafe table smoking a cigarette. And in the back, there are these two like city bike essentially in London, whatever it may be, and they're brat green, and it's just such like a picturesque, like it would have done numbers on Tumblr. Like if Charli and George got married back in 2014 and that photo hit Tumblr, it would be the most reblogged photo on the app. But like, you know, we are past Tumblr these days, so now it's like a TikTok has to go viral. But that being said, it just was such a Charli XCX coded day without, I feel like the thing that's really appealing about Charli is like everything she does is just so effortless and she doesn't try. Fact that like she's kind of leaning into this producer and movie era of Charli. I mean, she just acted in Overcompensating. She's working on the A24 movie with Jack Antonoff and Anne Hathaway. So there's a lot of projects under her belt right now that kind of take her away from music, but it's still feeding that creative side. So I'm curious now that she's married and she had this whole brat era where she was just kind of like going crazy and really just like truly showing Charli for who Charli is for the first time really in her career, where she was allowed to with not like a label restricting her. I'm curious to see what is next for her. And, you know, if it is music, if it's a family, if it's whatever it may be, we are very excited to see what is next for Mr. and Mrs. XCX. And moving on to the next moment of the week that was just too pop to handle, some Freakier Friday news. I mean, I've been talking about this movie on this podcast for pretty much since the first episode, and I've been yapping about it on the internet for even longer than this podcast had existed. And now that we are about 2 weeks away from the movie coming out, the premiere is literally happening right now as I'm recording this. I have such fun things that I am cooking up for you guys next week here in New York City about Freakier Friday. So there's just a lot happening. And as somebody who has been campaigning for this movie for as long as I have, you're gonna have to deal with some Freakier Friday talk for the next few weeks, because it's game time, it is go time, and I'm just so excited that this movie is finally coming out. I feel like I've waited so long for this movie to come out, so just bear with me. But that being said, the Freakier Friday soundtrack is coming out on August 1st, and we got the track list this week, and within said track list, Lindsay Lohan has a new original song called Baby. We're getting an original track and then an acoustic version of it, so like a reprise, I'm guessing sometime late, it'll be like the reflection scene in the movie. I'm assuming, they love to do a reprise later on in the movie. But it starts to kind of raise this question question of if and when Lindsay will ever return to music. Of course, she has her 2 original albums that came out. She did Jingle Bell Rock for Falling for Christmas. And I mean, some of us were there in 2020 when she tried to come back to pop music with Back to Me, but we won't open up that conversation now because she tried to come back to music and you guys weren't there. But now she's been, being asked. Of course, music is such a big part of Freaky Friday and Freakier Friday, with Pink Slip being such a crucial part to the story. So she was talking to Bustle and they brought up this unreleased song called Xanax that she teased originally as her comeback single to music in 2019, I want to say, and then it never saw the light of day, but it did end up leaking and it's on like YouTube and SoundCloud. It's incredible. Like, it is such great pop music, and the fact that it's not on streaming truly hurts me. But she did say this week that she needs to talk to the label because she sees all of our tweets and all of our comments and everything, everybody asking for it. So she needs to talk to the label to see if they can get it on streaming finally, because it's just been long enough. And I'm telling you right now, you guys thought it was annoying before. If Lindsay Lohan starts releasing music again, I'm going to be even more annoying than ever. You guys thought I was annoying about Freakier Friday. Just wait. Like, yes, Freaky Friday I've been so excited for, but more than being a fan of Freaky Friday, I'm a fan of Lindsay Lohan. Like, at its core, Lindsay is what pulls me to the movie. Of course, I love the movie, but Lindsay is the pull. Lindsay is the it girl of all it girls, as you guys know. So if Lindsay Lohan decides to make a return to music in any capacity, if you thought I was annoying before, just prepare to be sick of me. I was seriously so shocked that we got like a Xanax mention in 2025, like especially in a press interview for Freakier Friday. I was like, why are we bringing this song up? Like, what? I thought this song was like long gone, never gonna see the light of day. And the fact that there's like a glimmer of hope for it, we are ready. I've been ready. I was here. I was streaming Back to Me back in 2020 when it came out. But you know what? Maybe the world just wasn't ready for Lindsay Lohan the way that I have always been ready for Lindsay Lohan. I've just been eating up all of this press. Seriously, it is so exciting that this movie is finally coming out, and like seeing Lindsay return to Disney and reunite with the cast and Chad Michael Murray and Jamie Lee Curtis. And like, she really started her career with Disney so early on. And so to see her going back to Disney now and really just having this Lohan-assance, as everyone likes to call it, it is the craziest thing to see, and just it's so exciting and so just like thrilling to watch. I don't know. That's the only way I can think to describe it. I'm just so excited to finally watch this movie, finally hear this soundtrack, hear Lindsay on a new song for the first time in 5 years. Like, it's just going to be so exciting. And like I said, trust me, next week's episode is going to be so exciting. I cannot wait, but we will have to talk about that next week. And moving on to our final, or second to last, but the final moment kind of leads us in perfectly to our TV recap. So moving on to our final moment of the week that we're just too popped to handle that isn't related to the TV recap. Nicki Minaj has a new victim to bully online, and this week's person is SZA. So God forbid Nicki Minaj puts her phone down. I would love to see her screen time, and also would love to know the last time she saw her child. Nicki Minaj is picking on SZA this week, and it all started because Punch, who is the co-president of SZA's label, TDE, also SZA's direct manager, tweeted the words "broken Barbies." And now Nicki has been on this rant for honestly 2 weeks now. She has just been non-stop on Twitter. She is going through whatever she is going through and just has been tweeting more than anybody has ever tweeted in a 2-week period in their life. It is seriously insane. And I unfollowed her a few weeks ago because I cannot do it anymore. Like, I can't have you clogging up my Twitter anymore. It is so insufferable. That being said, Punch tweeted "broken Barbies," and of course Nicki's fans are called the Barbs, so you see Barbies and Nicki's on this crazy rant that she's going on for 17 years. She immediately thinks that it is tied to her. However, what Punch was actually doing is his job, which Nicki Minaj doesn't seem to like to do because her job is to be a rapper, but at this point all she does is create imaginary beef online. But he had a song coming out by this artist called I Am Lyric called "Broken Barbies," and the song is actually incredible, and all of the comments on the YouTube video are all like, I was brought here thanks to the Nicki beef. So I guess, even when people are preying on your downfall, it could actually help you out. So I love when you get like a happy accident like that. So Nicki went off. Nicki lost it and went crazy, even though it had nothing to do with her, which is usually the case. And the problem that I have with Nicki's crash outs, I've talked about this before. I love Nicki. I was such a huge Nicki fan, like a die-hard Barb growing up back in the mixtape days, Pink Friday. Like, I loved this woman so much, and I just can't do it anymore. It is so exhausting. That being said, her crash outs are always just out of nowhere, and it's so hard to trace back exactly what is starting them, but her fans are so dedicated to her that they will just take whatever she says, believe it, and run with it. But it's so hard to actually figure out the root of the cause of the problem and like what is actually happening. So the fact that we could actually trace it back and find it was kind of groundbreaking. So she tweeted after that, she said, "Y'all remember that man from TDE who kept bullying me on Twitter for no reason? We have the receipts, LOL. I never even responded to him. What was his name again, y'all? I'm gonna give him a nickname. I'm gonna call him minus 30 million from now on. Minus 30 million coming from, apparently Spotify is cracking down on like paid bots when people do like payouts to get streams or things like that. So she's alleging to like SZA and all of his artists now losing 30 million streams overnight because they were all botted streams, which I don't think is true actually, but whatever. So Punch the next morning was already on Damage Control and went on The Breakfast Club. And he said that back in 2020, Nicki Minaj had reached out for a SZA feature on a song. He responded back to Nicki and he said that SZA was in album mode, heavy, and he would get it over to her. And that was it. They never spoke again and the feature didn't happen. But after that, he has no idea what's going on and why she is so mad at him and like what is going on. And again, the problem with Nicki and her crash outs is she says she has these receipts, but she doesn't ever show the receipts. She never brings them to the table, and it's always like, oh, I have these receipts. Well, then show them, because you look insane on Twitter. Like, you look crazy. So from then, SZA enters the chat and she tweets, "Mercury retrograde, don't take the bait, LOL, silly goose," which SZA tweeting about Mercury being in retrograde is very typical of SZA. Like, she's very woohoo planets, very into all of that and spiritual and things like that. So it's not the craziest thing for her to tweet. It definitely just came at an unfortunate time for her to tweet it. And whether it was about Nicki or it wasn't, it isn't like an out of character thing for her to tweet. And Nicki responds and she said, "Go draw your freckles back on, Buki. Liar, liar, pants on fire, sounding like a fucking dead dog. Bitch looking and sounding like she got stung by a bee." And then she writes in like asterisks, "draws on my fake freckles." So SZA responds and says, "I don't give a fuck about none of that weird shit that you're popping." And then Nicki just loses it and goes on, God, just the longest tweets you have ever seen in your life. It's just, I'm like, what is your screen time, girl? Like, you are a 40-year-old woman sitting on Twitter more than you were doing anything else in your life, and you have a child at home. Like, what is going on? When was the last time she saw Papa Bear? Like, has anybody done a wellness check on that child? Because genuinely speaking, there's no way that she is posting as much as she is posting. Please, I am begging you to get off of Twitter and just like put this energy into your music, please. So from there, Nicki starts going on this whole rant saying that SZA isn't as successful as her, and that SZA keeps releasing a deluxe version of her album a year later to try to break records and like all of these things, which like, who cares? Like, why are you so worried about the way other people are? Not even just people. Why are you so wrapped up in how other women are releasing their music? It shows to me like an insecurity within Nicki, that she is worried that somebody is ever going to take this like title from her or something. And like, you're Nicki Minaj. You have made your pink print, for lack of a better term, on the music industry that will never go away. You are Nicki Minaj. You need to have a little bit of a backbone and a little confidence and remind yourself that you have literally created such a lane for women in rap music. And now she's not the first female rapper ever, of course. There's so many people who have come before her that have led and like made the path for her. But Nicki Minaj came onto the scene and seriously changed the game for female rap. You cannot deny that. And the fact that she is still picking on, it's always women specifically, it seems to be. Female artists specifically, she always needs to have an issue with. Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, SZA, when Taylor had the whole, when was it Taylor got nominated or won? I think it was a VMA for Shake It Off, and she posted about, oh, you're over there rattling your bones or whatever it was, and like body shamed Taylor, and like they made up whatever. But like still, it's like, it's always just so negative. And I just don't understand. Like, aren't you tired? So then Nicki fans, they do their thing. And of course, they're very loyal. And you know what? To that, I give the Barbs respect, because they are very loyal in defending this woman and whatever she says. And they start finding any video possible to make SZA look bad. And they're tweeting Rihanna swerving her at the Met Gala. They're finding old tweets, and they're doing their whole runaround that they always do, and trying to show how the new op in the picture is, you know, this bad person and blah, 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 and they have too much time in their hands and they need to go spend their time on Indeed and LinkedIn the same way Nicki needs to log out of Twitter. Like, it's nuts. And then SZA ends up tweeting, Nicki, you absolutely know my music and know what I contribute, because you've asked for features twice to no response. In addition to rapping my lyrics on Feeling Myself, cooking up the bass looking like a kilo, LOL, you're having a moment. I'm not sure why, but be blessed. And then if you look in the writing credits on Feeling Myself, SZA is credited on the writing credit. So to me, Nicki can keep tweeting all she wants, and people can pull up old videos of SZA not singing great live, and maybe she does draw on her freckles and this, that, and the third. But like, the fact that Nicki wants to say that like she never asked for a feature, or doesn't know SZA's music, and then SZA came with the receipts, and SZA literally showed text messages from Nicki where SZA was like, oh, is this Nicki Minaj? Like, yeah, let's do a song together. Like, yeah, let's do it. With Nicki reaching out to her first, like for Nicki to go online and be like, SZA's a liar, SZA's this, SZA's that, and then to be clocked back with receipts and shown that like she is literally rapping SZA's lyrics and try to act like SZA isn't a huge contribution to what music is today. It just goes to show that like these rants come from nowhere, and she is willing to prey on anybody who she can just like use as a punching bag. It is seriously, it's like a mental illness. And I say this as somebody, like, not to sit here and like bash her or be someone who's like, Nicki's da da da. Like, I love Nicki Minaj. If Nicki Minaj comes on at the club, I go insane. I rap bar for bar. I love Nicki down, but I just can't get behind her social media use. It is seriously insane. And I mean, like, you can assume that like SZA and Nicki have some tension, because obviously SZA and Drake had a past. Nicki and Drake are, you know, Nicki and Drake, and then Drake and Kendrick, and now SZA and Kendrick are on tour together, as well as having this long history of collaborating over the years for years now. Almost, I mean, it's been like 8 years since their first collaboration. Actually, probably longer than that. Like, you know, there's a lot of tension in that sense. You know, you could point fingers at Drake, you could point fingers at Kendrick, at this, whatever. There's definitely, they don't run in the same crowds, is what, you know, what I'm getting at. And clearly Nicki has feel some type of way towards her management and her manager and her, whatever it may be. What I'm really getting at is like, when things don't go Nicki's way, it is the end of the world, and she needs to turn everybody against that person. I just wish Nicki Minaj would use social media the way that Beyonce and Rihanna do, where they're kind of like under the radar, low key. They're not like going on these crazy Twitter rants, because like she is one of the greats. Like, she is up there with these great artists, and the thing that separates them is that she has this like crazy crash out on Twitter once a month. And it's sad to see. Like, it really upsets me to see that like Nicki Minaj is Nicki Minaj. Like, she is literally, if not the greatest, one of the greatest female rappers of all time. And she's acting like this on the internet. It truly blows my mind. But I feel like I've put too much energy into her Twitter crash outs, and like, I just can't anymore. It's exhausting. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how people sit there and read these tweets and don't think she is nuts. Like, she needs some type of mental health. And I say that from a place of love. And I'm going to leave it at that, because if I go any further, I'm going to get in trouble with the Barbs, and I do not need them spamming my comments, spamming my, 1-star review. I don't need that. I don't need any of that. And if you are a Barb listening, I see you. I understand. I get it, because Nicki Minaj is the one and only. Like, she's Nicki fucking Minaj. And I just wish she would act like it. That's how I'm going to leave it. And moving on to the final moment of the week, there were just two pop to handle that will segue us perfectly into our TV recap segment. Cierra Ortega has lost her damn mind. She posted on Instagram and TikTok. She did that "you look happier" trend that's going on right now. And she said, "I booked a flight to Mykonos after surviving the villain edit on reality TV, and I didn't end up with a guy who never actually liked me and wanted my friend the entire time." Let me know, when during Love Island season 7 did Cierra ever get the villain edit on reality TV? I'll wait. Because it didn't happen. Never in this entire season did Cierra ever get the villain edit on Love Island, except for the time when she used a racial slur and got kicked out of the villa to be held accountable. There is a difference between getting kicked out of the villa and being held accountable for using a racial slur and getting the villain edit. And now people online are being like, she said the villain edit because people are making her the villain online, da 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 da. But if you look back to before any of that came about, people, yes, there were Nicki-Landria shippers, but for the most part, me included, we were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you, Cierra, and we wanted you and Nick to be together. And I was up on this podcast saying that Nick and Cierra were so cute, and I was so happy that they were closed off and they coupled up again after Casa Amor, and everybody was rooting for you. You were the only person in a coupled up, closed off pair on Love Island before you got kicked out of the villa for using a racial slur. And to get online and say that you were getting the villain edit when you were the farthest thing from the villain edit is insane to me. And you can argue that the producers were pushing Nick and Olandria because they saw that people wanted them together. That's fine. However, when the producer stepped in and put Nick and Olandria together, they both decided mutually that they were going to go their separate ways and not be together because they didn't feel the spark at the time when they both had Cierra and Taylor in the villa. The only reason Nick and Olandria ended up back together is because of the fact that Cierra was kicked out of the villa and they decided to explore their connection because otherwise they would have probably been dumped from the island. So for Cierra to get online and get up on her soapbox and try to make people feel bad that she got the villain edit because she used a racial slur and wasn't being held accountable properly, that is insane. And now I will admit, I'm the first person to say there is no reason for people to be sending her death threats, to be calling ICE on her family. There is a way to hold somebody accountable without going to the extreme that people do on the internet. Like, I feel like people don't understand how to hold somebody accountable without going 0 to 100. And like, that I do not co-sign. I do not condone. That is uncalled for. However, for her to sit there and try to throw a pity party for herself and say that she got the villain edit on a reality show, a competition reality show, mind you, in which the whole point of the show is to go on and explore connections to end up at the end to win money. Like, yeah, maybe Nick did end up with Olandria, but that's the point of the show, to explore connections and see what is stronger and things like that. It's just insane to me, truly insane, that she got on her social media and literally typed out the words, "I got the villain edit," and posted it thinking that that was going to go over well. She has lost her damn mind. She needs to charge those crystals in the moon for a little bit longer because mama needs to be grounded. And that being said, let's get into our TV recap, as I said. So we're going to recap Love Island Beyond the Villa first, and then we'll get into Drag Race. And all I'm going to say about Love Island Beyond the Villa, actually two things. First, if they continue to push the narrative about Kaylor and Liv hating each other and the whole season is just surrounding the two of them trying to rekindle their friendship and they have these blowouts and then they're ignoring each other, I'm not interested. I understand that it's good TV, sure, whatever. I'm not watching Love Island Beyond the Villa to watch Kaylor and Liv have their petty little arguments about a Canon G7X. I am watching Love Island Beyond the Villa because I want to watch PPG together. And my second thing about Love Island Beyond the Villa is we have barely seen PPG together. Now, yes, it's only been 2 episodes, but like, we are all tuning in for PPG, not for Kaylor, Liv, Connor, Aaron. Like, yes, of course, we want to see them too. We want to watch them all together, but we have not seen PPG together. We didn't see them together once on episode 2, I don't think. And like, that's really why we're all tuning in. So if they continue to push Kaylor and Liv as like the head story during the season, I know we eventually get into like Janae and Kenny a little bit more. And now with Cordell leaving, I'm sure Serena will be back around the girls and like whatever. And again, it's only episode 2. So it could definitely, I could definitely be jumping the gun. But like, we've seen 2 episodes so far. And the main plot line is that Janae doesn't like Connor and that Kaylor and Liv aren't friends over a fucking camera and Liv continuing to lie to Kaylor. I just like this can't be the narrative the entire season. Like this cannot be how they continue the season. Because it's pissing me off. But obviously I'm going to keep watching and we will see what happens. And I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch. I'm just telling you guys now, if we get to like episode 5, this is my limit. If we get to episode 5 and we are still watching Kayla and Liv fight about this goddamn Canon G7X, whatever camera it was, I'm going to blow my gasket. And that's all I'm going to say about Love Island Beyond the Villa. I just cannot. Moving on to Drag Race, we have the finale of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars 10. It is another day in the workroom, and we have a lip-sync Lollapalooza. So first things first, the girls enter the workroom, and we find out who the wild card winner is. And as my math was mathing, Carrie Colby is the returning queen, which, yeah, I'm not thrilled about. I definitely would have loved to see Denali, Mistress, Tina Burner. There were some other girls I would have preferred to see come back, but I mean, it doesn't matter because you guys voted out first anyway. So that being said, it is a lip sync Lollapalooza and Ru is throwing a little twist. The girls have to rate the queens based on who is their biggest competition to the end, but they don't know what this ranking means. Like they don't know if that means they're going to go against them or like how the cards are going to fall. So the girls kind of do their rankings. Some of them do it true to their hardest competition. Some of them do a little rigging and try to beat the system or whatever. But the ultimate list that ends up coming out, and this is the list that allegedly the queens all think is they voted these are the hardest queen to beat in a lip sync to the easiest. Number 1 is Ginger Minj. Sure, she's very theatrical. I can see that. Number 2, Lydia. My reasoning for that, I believe, is because Lydia's the only one who's done a lip sync Lollapalooza that I believe. So like that, I guess, but like putting Lydia over Georges and Aja seems insane. Coming in at number 3 is Georgia, so at least she's in the top 3. And now this is where the rigmarole really gets really crazy, because you're telling me that these girls thought that Daya and Bosco were stiffer lip sync competition. Strictly lip syncing, they thought that Daya and Bosco were stronger lip syncers than Aja. That really throws me through a loop because Aja is known to be a performer. If I was making this list, it would honestly be Georges, Aja, and then they could fall however under that. Like the rest of them can kind of fall where they may. But Georges and Aja not being at the top of this list seriously blows my mind. So we have Daya number 4, Bosco number 5, Aja at 6, 7 it was Irene, and number 8 was Carrie. So that is the list, and it ends up being, so it was like the number 1 and number 8 went together, number 2 and number 7 went together, 3 and 6 went together, and then 4 and 5 went together. So we had Ginger and Carrie, Lydia and Irene, Georges and Aja, and Daya and Bosco, and then from there, the cards fell where they may, with the girls going against whoever the bracket turned it out for. What I will say about this episode, these lip sync songs were incredible. We had Disease, Lady Gaga, Show Me How You Burlesque, which I've never done drag and it's not something I would ever actually pursue. I don't think, because I just love the art form so much that I would never want to get involved with it and then get tired of it. But I would have always said, if I ever did a drag number, it would be to Show Me How You Burlesque. So seeing Show Me How You Burlesque on this list just feels so correct to me. It is the perfect song to do as a lip sync, and I was thrilled to see it in this finale. Then we have Party Lights by Natalie Cole, Joyride by Kesha, Raise Your Glass by Pink, and Whenever Wherever by Shakira, with It's Raining Man being revealed as the finale song once we get to the finale. And what I'm going to say is, with this level of songs, and these are great lip sync songs. Honestly, all 6 of them are incredible songs for a lip sync. These lip syncs weren't anything crazy. And I don't know if it's the girls, I don't know if it was the pairing, I don't know what it was, but the only lip syncs that I thought were really jaw-dropping and notable were Show Me How You Burlesque with Bosco and Daya, and Party Lights by Natalie Cole with Aja and Georges. The rest of them were fine, and there were moments that were really great. Ginger definitely gave a lot of emotion in all of her lip syncs, as she always does, and the girls had their moments. Lydia was definitely really funny. They all had their moments, but there wasn't it wasn't the lip syncs really stood out to me. And with this, when you're getting this level of song, I want to see some crazy shit on that stage, and it just wasn't as crazy as I wanted. So I'm not even gonna go through all the lip syncs, honestly, because I was what am I gonna go it'll be boring for me to go through all of it. But Aja and Georges were turning it on that stage. It was fucking incredible. And then Bosco during Show Me How You Burlesque. Are we fucking kidding me? With the feathers, she takes them off and they're like little wings. The whole moment during the bridge where she's like going in and out and like revealing herself. Bosco is one of, if not the most beautiful person I have ever seen on the RuPaul's Drag Race stage. Like, her and Monet Exchange are battling for the most beautiful person to ever grace the stage of RuPaul's Drag Race, because I cannot believe how unbelievably stunning that woman is. And this lip sync, she was born to lip sync to Show Me How You Burlesque. Like, she was made for this and it was incredible. And those are the only two that really gagged me. I'm going to say it. I'm like, just calling it how I see it. That being said, the final two ends up being Georges and Ginger. Oh, actually, I skipped ahead on my notes. I did want to say, I need to give a shout out to Lydia Butthole Collins, because she literally came fresh off of her regular Drag Race season, went right back to All Stars, killed it in her original bracket, made it to the top 3 on her first All-Star season. And that was not easy to do. That is really impressive. And I have got to give her flowers where flowers are due, because that is so impressive to me. Lydia, shout out to you. You ate that. So, like I said before, I spoiled it. The top 2 are Georges versus Ginger. And this is the whole conversation online, whether it was rigged for Ginger to win or whatever it may be. What I will say about this lip sync is that off the bat, when I was watching it, I was like, Georges is doing too much. And now I understand it is the final lip sync to win $200,000 and the title of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars 10 winner, a coveted spot in the Drag Race Hall of Fame, and year supplies of Anastasia Beverly Hills and all the stuff that comes with it. I understand that like Georges was doing what Georges needed to do, but it was too many tricks and flips and death drops and things like that, which I love about Georges. Georges is without a doubt one of the best lip syncers we have seen on RuPaul's Drag Race. However, Ginger really has such a way of conveying the song with her face and making you feel the song through her eyes and her mouth and her movements. And like, she has such a way of performing that she doesn't need to do all the flips and tricks. And it, depending on the song, when it's Raining Men, like, you don't need to do so many flips and tricks because the lyrics kind of speak for themselves. I mean, it's literally a song and they say it's Raining Men, hallelujah. Like, you don't need to be doing a death drop every time that beat drops. You need to be showing the song and really bringing it to life, which Ginger really excels at. So whether or not the rest of the season was rigged, as people are saying, I don't believe it was. I think Ginger put up a great fight. Was she my like front runner the entire season? No, but like, I thought she did a really good job, and it's her 4th time on Drag Race. It's time to put a crown on her damn head. But that being said, the conversations online that people are having, especially some of the queens that were on this season, it's getting a little crazy. And I honestly feel really bad that Ginger is dealing with all this backlash. But I mean, hey, she is the winner of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Star 10 and she finally has a crown. And it feels correct that Ginger Minj is in the Drag Race Hall of Fame. Like, that feels correct to me. I do feel bad that Georges didn't win because she put up such a killer fight. But who knows? This was her 3rd time back on Drag Race. It was Ginger's 4th. Maybe they bring back Georges for a 4th time in a year or two and she wins the crown finally. Like, it wasn't her time to win. But more than anything, RuPaul is obsessed with Georges. So the way that RuPaul loves Georges, honestly, is more valuable than the title could ever be. And yeah, of course, the crown and the money and everything is so nice to have. But like, RuPaul literally looked at Georges and said, you were born to do drag. And it brought her back 3 times in 2 years, I want to say, right? 2-3 years, I want to say. I forget when Georges' original season aired, but like, she's been back a lot over the time that she's been on this show. So like, RuPaul loves that diva so much. And to me, that is much more valuable than the money in the account is nice, of course, but like, she got some money, she did her thing, and she will definitely be back. And there's no doubt that Georges will get a crown eventually. It's just a matter, it's not if, it's when kind of thing. And that is Drag Race All-Stars 10, another Drag Race season in the books. I really enjoyed the season, like I've been saying. I love the brackets. I love the format, that it was really, really well done. And I've heard through the grapevine, some birdies have been telling me that All Stars 11 is following the same format. I'm not going to go any further than the things that I've heard, but that is what I've heard. So very exciting to see that they are continuing this format because I think it works really, really well. And that is another All Stars in the books, or another Drag Race season in the books. What is that, our 4th season that we recapped? I kind of did like a loose recap of All Stars last year. So our 3rd official All Stars recap, I will say, on the podcast. Another one in the books. But yeah, that is Drag Race for 2025 in terms of like the US seasons. Very crazy. We are wrapping up and it is time to figure out who's going to be the next RuPaul's Drag Race queen to be crowned for season 18, right? 18 it'll be? We just did 17? That sounds right. I think that's correct. Whatever. Regardless, you know what I'm saying? And that means we made it to the end of the episode, which means it is time for our yes and our mess of the week. My yes being something I am loving and my mess being something I am not loving. And for the first time in Too Pop to Handle history, we are going to switch things around because my yes and my mess are kind of intertwined, but the mess has to come first for the yes to make sense. So we typically start things on a high note here at Too Pop to Handle, but sometimes you gotta switch things up and put that thing down, flip it, and reverse it. And we are starting with my mess this week. And my mess this week is the fact that Stephen Colbert's Late Show is getting canceled. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into it because they are my current employer, Paramount. And obviously, I'm not high up in the company. I can't call any of those shots. But what I will say is that it is very sad to see any form of late night television getting canceled in today's climate, because late night is one of the only ways that we get a truly digestible and like not so harsh way to get the news, if that makes sense. Like, it's such an outlet that people turn to obviously be informed on what's going on, but it adds some humor to it. And the news that we are getting these days, damn near every day, essentially, with, you know, He Who Must Not Be Named in office and the one that's really putting behind, you know, pushing for Colbert to get canceled. There's just always something in the news that is so heartbreaking and so sad. And the fact that we are seeing a late night show get canceled almost immediately after speaking up and out against the administration and some of the things that are going on, the inner workings of how do I say this? The inner workings of the donations being made to the Trump administration. You know, it's just sad to see that the highest rated late night talk show is getting canceled. Just doesn't make any sense. However, my yes of the week is watching Stephen Colbert telling Donald Trump to go fuck himself. I just think it is incredible that he is just going to be unhinged for the next year. We have another season with him. It'll be off air in May of 2026. And I believe he takes a break for the summer soon. I looked at his filming schedule. He stops filming like next week, I want to say, and then he'll come back in the fall and it'll air through May. So we definitely have some Colbert, you know, to for a while. But we're about to see the most unhinged season of late night television we have seen in years, if not ever. And you know what? I am here for it. I will be tuned in. I will be watching. And wherever Colbert goes and whatever is next for him, I'm sure everybody will follow. And that is our show. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Too Pop to Handle. If you liked what you heard and you're listening to us as a podcast, like I said, don't be shy. Go ahead and leave me a 5-star rating. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a big thumbs up. Drop a comment, hit subscribe. There's a lot of buttons to press on YouTube. Hit them all except for dislike. It really is the best way to help support the show. If you were looking for some extra moments from the week that were just Too Pop to Handle in between podcast episodes because an hour episode isn't enough, head over to my Substack. It is toopoptohandle.substack.com. I'll have it linked down in the description. And I send out a weekly newsletter with some extra pop culture moments from the week that were just too pop to handle for you to bring to your brunch, bring to your family gathering, whatever it may be. I know I'm just keeping you in the know in between episodes. If you would like to follow me on social media, like I said, I have a lot of really exciting stuff coming up in the next week. So it is a great time to jump on following me on social media. I am at Too Pop to Handle or at Andrew Nucatola across all platforms. And with that being said, I will catch you all next week. Bye.